It's 2:30 in the afternoon on April 27, 2011, in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and shipping clerk Jim Fulton is loading a delivery truck at Richardson Molding when a call crackles over the plant radio. A funnel cloud is crossing the bypass a few miles away, and within minutes it will touch down as a violent EF5 tornado, the first one Mississippi has seen since 1966. Fulton barely has time to register the warning. The funnel is already dropping into the parking lot outside his loading dock. To understand how a tornado gets from a funnel over a highway bypass to 205 miles an hour in 8 minutes, you have to rewind 3 hours to an ordinary spring low-pressure system dragging Gulf moisture north across the Mississippi Valley. By early afternoon, a warm front is draped across the central part of the state, and the air ahead of it has turned unstable in a way that matters. CAPE values climb past 2,500 joules per kilogram, well beyond what a garden-variety thunderstorm needs to go severe. Layered on top of that instability is strong low-level helicity, the twisting motion in the lowest few thousand feet of atmosphere that turns an ordinary updraft into a rotating one. Ahead of the front, dew points are pushing into the upper 60s and low 70s, moisture more typical of a Gulf Coast July afternoon than a Mississippi Wednesday in April, and exactly the kind of low-level fuel a supercell needs to keep its updraft fed for hours instead of minutes. Winds aloft are veering sharply with height, the signature that tells forecasters a storm's updraft is about to start rotating rather than simply rising and collapsing. Around 1 p.m., a supercell fires south of Jackson and starts running northeast at 55 miles an hour, fast enough that the towns ahead of it will have markedly less warning time than the towns behind it already had. 25 minutes later, it's severe, and the National Weather Service office in Jackson has a warning out for Leake, Rankin, and Scott counties, calling for winds over 60 miles an hour and hail the size of quarters. A hook echo shows up on radar by 1:36 p.m., and a tornado warning goes up for Leake and Scott, with forecasters flagging the storm as potentially tornadic. By 2:03 p.m., that warning stretches into Neshoba County. The gun is loaded, and Philadelphia is standing in front of it. The tornado touches down at 2:30 p.m., just east of Philadelphia Municipal Airport, close enough to an Army National Guard armory that the crew inside can watch it form. At first, it doesn't look like much. Trees down, a roof torn loose. EF2 level damage that wouldn't make the evening news on its own. 11 people inside the armory crowd into a single bathroom as the building groans around them. All 11 walk out untouched. But the storm isn't finished building. Within minutes, it plants itself down harder, and by 2:38 p.m., it's producing EF5 damage in northeastern Neshoba County, scouring the ground down to bare clay in places nearly 2 feet deep, the kind of gouge left only by the most violent tornadoes ever surveyed. That's the moment Jim Fulton is standing in the Richardson Molding parking lot. The funnel drops directly onto the property, flicking 2 or 3 vehicles into the drainage ditch like they were pushed by hand. It was just unreal, Fulton would say of it. He isn't hurt. He doesn't know yet that what just grazed his loading dock is about to become the most violent tornado his state has recorded in 45 years. By 2:30 p.m., with the tornado now confirmed on the ground and growing, a tornado emergency goes out for Neshoba, Kemper, Noxubee, and Winston counties, the National Weather Service's rarest and most urgent alert, reserved for tornadoes that pose a near-certain threat to life. A Talk TV camera mounted on a tower in Meridian catches the wedge from more than 20 miles away. Storm chasers converge on back roads to document it up close. One of them, Andy Gabrielson, gets within a few hundred yards and rolls tape as the multi-vortex structure churns past, its outer walls trading places every few seconds. At Northside Park, Philadelphia Parks and Recreation employee Lemmet Crockett watches the same tornado from a fraction of that distance. He doesn't run for a car. He stares down one of the most violent things Mississippi has ever produced, close enough to see individual subvortices rope around the main circulation like pistons firing out of sequence. But the tornado is only getting started. Crossing into Kemper County, it holds its EF5 intensity, and on Green Road, a family of 3 has taken shelter inside a mobile home anchored to its foundation. The anchors don't matter. The entire structure lifts whole off its footers, spins into the air, and is flung 300 yards, nearly 3 football fields, before it comes apart in a stand of trees. Survey teams walking the debris field afterward would find no evidence the trailer ever touched the ground in between. No bounce marks, no roll marks, no drag furrow through the pasture grass. Just a straight and terrible arc from one point to the other, the wreckage itself scattered for hundreds of yards past the tree line where it finally came down. All 3 people inside are killed instantly, the tornado's only fatalities. 8 more people along the path are injured, most by debris carried on winds strong enough to strip the bark clean off standing hardwoods. The storm doesn't let up there. Approaching the Kemper, Winston County line, it reloads, the ground scouring resumes at full EF5 depth, and pavement is stripped clean off the roads a second time, as if the tornado had spent its first pass only warming up for this one. Debris that was once framing lumber and roofing tin is airborne at heights that turn it into shrapnel, some of it found scattered hundreds of yards past the point of impact, thrown outward like it had been fired from the funnel rather than picked up by it. The funnel itself has changed shape twice by this point, a narrow, almost rope-thin condensation cone at touchdown near the airport, thickening into a dense, multi-vortex stovepipe by the time it crosses into Kemper County. Individual subvortices visible orbiting the main circulation in the chaser footage. At its widest, it spans roughly 900 yards. More than half a mile of destruction moving as a single connected mass, wide enough to erase several city blocks in one pass. Damage surveyors would later note that this Philadelphia tornado marked the first F5 or EF5 rated tornado in Mississippi since the Candlestick Park tornado of March 3, 1966. A 45-year gap closed in less than 10 minutes. It wouldn't be the only EF5 of the day, or even of the state. Later that afternoon, Smithville, Mississippi would take a direct hit from a second EF5, its winds also estimated at 205 miles an hour, while Hackleburg-Phil Campbell, Alabama would be struck by the single strongest tornado of the entire outbreak at 210 miles an hour. But Philadelphia's tornado was first. Crossing into extreme southeastern Winston County, it begins to lose its grip. Surveyors would later drop the rating there to high-end EF3, occasionally low-end EF4, as the same rotation that had scoured clay in Neshoba County starts chewing through pine timber instead of homes and pavement. The tornado's rear flank downdraft, the cold plume of outflow trailing behind its circulation, gradually wraps fully around the parent mesocyclone, cutting the funnel off from the warm, moist inflow that had been feeding it for half an hour. Starved of the fuel that built it, the vortex thins, stretches, and lifts for good at 3:00 p.m., about 6 miles north of the small community of Meshulaville. In 30 minutes on the ground, it had carved a path 28.28 miles long through 4 counties. Governor Haley Barbour declares a state of emergency for 39 Mississippi counties before nightfall. By the following day, roughly 120 Mississippi National Guard soldiers are on the ground in Neshoba County, clearing debris and securing roads. 2 days later, President Obama signs a major disaster declaration covering 29 counties, opening federal aid to residents who no longer have homes to return to. Volunteers from Longino Baptist Church spend the following weeks hauling debris out of yards along the tornado's path, and the Salvation Army sets up a feeding station at Coy Methodist Church for families with nowhere left to cook a meal. None of it made much of a dent in the national memory of April 27, 2011. By the time the sun went down that evening, the same outbreak had produced the Hackleburg-Phil Campbell EF5 that killed 72 people, the long-tracked Tuscaloosa-Birmingham EF4 that tore through a state capitol on live television, and Mississippi's own second EF5 of the day at Smithville. Against that scale of loss, a 30-minute tornado that struck mostly rural farmland, and claimed 3 lives simply stopped being the story anyone told about that day, even though it was the tornado that broke Mississippi's 45-year drought first. Northside Park has long since been mowed, replanted, and repainted. A visitor driving past its outfield fences today, past the rebuilt parking lot at what used to be Richardson Molding, would have no reason to know that a half-mile wide wedge tornado once passed within a few hundred yards of where Lemont Crockett stood and watched it go by.